Welcome back to Coding with Josh. This is part 4 and the final video of our series using the UI Faces API with ReactJS and Context API. In this video, we will be discussing views, layout, components, and mobile First CSS to complete our app. Let's get started. For the views, we've already created the home page. Here we have what we created in part 3 of the series. So now let's create the layout.js, the layout CSS, and the grid CSS for the shared folder. So I will create the layout.js and the layout.css and the grid.css. So let's start with the grid CSS, since this will be what frames our website. Now remember, we are taking a mobile first CSS approach to this. So everything outside of our media query will be what is shown on a mobile device. And then we will override it using media queries for desktop views. First, we're going to create a row. Everything will go inside of a row. And we will have columns in that row. I'm going to make that singular. Now we're also going to have nested columns, and we're going to need to override the default behavior of that. So we'll do column. So if column was the parent, any additional columns inside of that will have this override CSS. Since row is our wrapping container, we will do display, flex, and then we'll have a flex direction of row and a flex wrap of wrap. Then in our column, we will have flex 1, 1, 100. For our column, we will have flex 1, 1, 100%. The first property here is flex grow, and flex grow specifies how much the item will grow relative to the rest of the flexbox items inside. Next, we will have our shrink, which means it specifies how the item will shrink relative to the rest of the flexible items outside of the same container. And then finally, we have the flex basis, and this sets the initial length of the flexible item, or width in this case. For the nested column, we're actually going to override that and just set that to 1. So what this will do is it'll override this 100% and it'll set it back to auto. And as you'll see, as we progress, without this override, we would not get the columning effect that we want in a mobile device. Now we're going to create our overrides at media. And we're going to take the screen and the min width of 700 pixels. Now we're going to have a column, because now at this point on a desktop, we are going to override this class right here. And we're just going to set that to flex 1. So now we're going to create a 60-40 split for what the application is going to look like on a desktop. So we're going to have a class called 40, and it's going to have a flex of 4. So what this means is that in a flex container, this will take up 40% of the remaining volume of that flex area. Now we're going to do a 60% split. And we'll do flex 6. And that'll take up the the 60% that's left over. And that's it for our grid. Now let's go to our layout.js. Now that we have that grid framework that we will be using, we can actually start plugging in some classes now to help our website look a little bit more presentable. This will be a class-based component. So I will import a React component. We are going to add styles as well. And I'm only going to import the layout. The reason for this is because we are going to import the grid into our layout CSS. And export default class layout extends component render return. And then we actually will be using the open and closed angled brackets for this. Going to have a header, which will contain the title of our site, but generally in here you'd have a nav. But since we're not navigating to anything in this little app, we're not going to add a nav in. So we'll call this UI faces with ReactJS and Context API. And then finally, we will have a main. And this is going to have props of children, because we'll be wrapping our application in this, since this is the framework of our website. Save that. Back in the layouts.css, I'm actually going to import a Google font, Open Sans. So I'll paste that in there. And then we will also import the grid.css. That way we can have access to our grid styling throughout the website. I've labeled this in a way that our generic fonts or our element overrides will go in here. I also have a mobile and a desktop section. The reason for this is just to try and keep things a little more organized with the styles. You don't have to add comments. This is just something that I found that helps me. All right, we're going to have our body, and we're going to set the margin to 0, padding to 0, font family to Open Sans, and sans serif. We'll also override the font size to 1 rem and line height to 1.5 rem. The W3 org defines rem as equal to the computed value of font size on the root element. We will also have H1, H2, and H3. And this will have a margin of 0, padding of 1 rem and 0, font weight of 700, and text align of center. So this means that on our mobile app, any of the H1, H2, H3s, the text in that H tag will be centered. And we're going to override the A tags. set the text decoration to none. We're going to have a header background color just so it's distinct from the rest of our application. We'll have an app class, and then we will have a padding that we will use specifically on mobile devices. In our header, you'll have a background color of whatever you'd like it to be. We could do kind of a purplish color. It might look nice. The color of the font will be white. Font size will be 1.5 rem. Line height will be 2 rem. And we will have a padding of 5 pixels on the y-axis and 10 pixels on the x-axis. The app container will have a width of 95%. Oops. And we are going to have a margin on it of 40 pixels on the y-axis, and then this auto will center it on the x-axis. So 40 on the y-axis, auto on the x-axis. Then we will do a padding right, 30px, and padding left of 30 pixels. Great. In our desktop overrides, we will continue to have the media, screen, and min width of 700 pixels. So we will only be using one breakpoint throughout this application, and that breakpoint will be the 700 pixels. I'm going to grab these two since we will be overwriting those. And I'm also going to grab the header tags because we will be left aligning those header tags on the desktop app. So we don't need any of that. That will all stay the same. The only thing that we will override is the text align. And on here, you're going to remove everything, and we're going to set the max width of 1220 pixels. So this is saying no matter how large the screen is going to get, the max width on the desktop is going to be set to 1220 pixels. The desktop app will also inherit the margin of 40 pixels in auto, meaning that it will stay centered on a desktop app and a mobile app. We are also going to override this mobile padding and set those to 0. Now we'll add some additional margining and padding that we will use on the desktop app. I will just name that padding left 40, padding right 40, and padding X 40. Padding left 40 pixels. Padding right 40 pixels. And then we'll do padding right 40 pixels and padding left 40 pixels. All right, that completes our layout CSS. So now we'll go to layout.js and we'll start getting that plugged in. So we'll do class name app, and then up on the header, we'll do a class name of header. Gonna save all of that. We'll come to our app. We need to add it to the app.js. We will create a views and import layout from views shared layout. And we'll put our layout here. And then our app routes. Because we are wrapping the app route, which contains the pages like home, that means that it will inherit the layout that we have just set. So now if I come back here, we have our initial layout. All right, it's looking good. In Home.js, we can actually start doing something with this. We have the base framework of our layout. Now we're going to start adding homepage specific architecture. I'm actually going to remove the team here. So we are going to create a div that is going to have a class name of row. We need to wrap each row of our application in a row class because that has our display flex on it. And then we are going to have another div that is going to consist of a column, and this is going to be a 60% width. As you can see in what we're aiming to build, this is going to be our 60% width right here, and this will be our 40% width. So we're going to add a class name of column and _60. And then we'll insert our team again. And next we will have another div that has a class name of column and _40. So we're going to have a padding of x40, and then for mobile only, we're going to have a padding of x30. I'm going to grab some text real quick and just bring that down. This can be anything that you'd like. This is just what I had previously used. This actually comes from a great site. It's called Riker Ipsum. I found this years ago and I've just fallen in love with it. It comes up with some of the funniest things I've ever read. Back in our app, we now have our 60% and then our 40%. Great, this is coming along very nicely. In our components, the only thing that's missing is our avatar.js and an avatar CSS. Let's get those created. So we'll do avatar, if I can spell, avatar.js, and then avatar.css. The purpose of the avatar.js and the idea behind it is that we can reuse this component. So, for example, we have the team.js, and we will actually insert an avatar into here that we are going to pass data back to. Now, if we wanted to build this application out more, we might have a members page, and that members page would also use the avatar.js, and it might look different. So the idea is that we would create a flexible component that allows us to alter its appearance on different pages. The avatar.js will be a class-based component. And it will also have styles. So we'll need to import avatar.css. Export default class avatar extends component. Render and return. For this component, we're going to have a wrapping div that we'll put a class on later. But for now, let's just get this stubbed out, and then we're going to have a div which will contain our image, or the avatar's image, that we will be passing in. And then we will have a couple spans. These could also be labels, but I just wanted a way that we could style some text for this. So this will be our position. We're actually going to throw a strong in here as well. We could use the B tag, but I just prefer to use the strong HTML tag. And this will consist of our name. Now, we'll be passing in some data to this, and in order to get that out of the property, we're going to have a const, and this is going to consist of the props. So the property that we are going to be passing in, we're just going to be calling data. So as we come down to here, so in our image source, we are going to pass in data.photo, and we're also going to add in an alt tag, and that's going to be data.name. We're also going to use that data.name here. And then the position will be data.position. Now before we get to our styles, let's add in the avatar. So we'll do, on the team.js, you will do import avatar from avatar and avatar. So in our context loop that we have, we will be returning a div. I guess I could have left that, didn't have to delete it, with a key of index and a class name of column. Then we'll pass in our avatar, and the data property that we are setting here will consist of the data that we have access to as we are looping over the array of objects. Now if we save that, we actually have something that we could show, but it doesn't look right, so we'll get that fixed. Back in the avatar CSS, I will use a generic. To duplicate line, it's Alt Shift and the down arrow. You can also use the up arrow. So that's just a quick little shortcut that you can use to duplicate lines. And we'll have mobile and desktop. So we will have an avatar card, which is the wrapping div of the avatar component. We'll add a border solid 1px, and we'll give that a light gray color. We'll add a border radius just to soften the edges of 2px. We'll have a width of auto, margin of 10 pixels, a padding of 10 pixels, and the text in the card will be aligned to center. So I'm going to grab this. Since we are adding children to it, we'll have a card photo. We will also have, well, I guess we could have put this up in the generic, but I'll leave that up to you, depending on how you want to organize it. The only reason why I haven't is because it's not overriding the global style. This is a specific override for the avatar card. And as I was talking, I added the span in as well. These overrides are specific to this class. All right, we'll have the card photo itself will have a width of 118 pixels and a height of the same. We will also center that with some additional margining. So we'll have a margin of 0, and then here is what will center the photo. And then on the bottom, we'll have a 20 pixel. If the photo is larger than the card photo class, then we are going to hide the rest of the photo. So in the avatar card image, we will add a width of 100%. So what this means is the wrapping div will have a width of 118 pixels. The image itself will be forced to the width of that 118 pixels with a height of auto, and then in the span we will display that as a block, and then text align center. And we'll add a margin to that of 5 pixels. So that'll give us a little bit of space between the images and the other context and the other text that we have written in there. For the desktop, we will have our media query of screen and min width of 700 pixels. We'll be overriding the avatar card itself for the desktop and giving it a static height. Of 270 pixels. And then we will also grab the card photo and we will only be overriding the width and the height of the photo. We'll be setting the width to 148 and the height to 148. So let's save all of that and see what the app does. With the styles created, let's go in and add that to our avatar component. So we'll do a class name of avatar card, and we'll do a class name of avatar photo. Sorry, class name of card photo. And let's save that. We forgot to add a class name of row here. go. So this is what I had previously built, and this is what we currently have. So that wraps up this series. As you can see, I hit refresh and the images refresh. We are pulling them from the UI Faces API. If I come up to here, I can toggle the device to format to an iPhone X. Now, we could further refine this so that when text wraps, that we can either add an ellipsis, or we can set the height of the boxes so that we know that it will always fit. There's a few things that we could do to optimize this, but these are just small, simple principles that you can follow as you learn React. In conclusion, I just wanted to mention that outside of videos, this was my first attempt to making content for YouTube. I really enjoyed the challenge of these videos, and I have a variety of other videos planned for this channel. I will take what I learned from these videos and continue to try to do better. I hope I was able to teach some new concepts to you, and I look forward to doing more videos soon. If you liked what you learned, please share, like, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.